program staff nuts because their eval staff is 4 times larger than my staff because they needed to kind of do that. And program basically said, okay, if you need that in the grantees, it's just a requirement. There has to be a major eval project in every grant. They recently got a new CEO in that place, and so he's asking the question of things like, well, how does that roll up? How do those clusters of grants now make a difference? What are we learning in Insights? Because they've piled up all these eval reports that people aren't actually reading or utilizing. So they've done all this activity. So we're almost 2 ships passing in the night now because I'm moving more to the grant level and figuring out how we support that level work. Right. And they're moving the other direction, which is, wow, we've not overinvested, but they're wondering if they've overinvested on this grant level eval that may or may not be fully utilized, and can they lift that up to higher insights or having a more learning focus rather than just a evidence focus for them. So it was really interesting to be with them. Again, one model isn't right or wrong. It has to fit within your culture of values, and Walton had this value of high evidence at the grant level. Right. So that's something to build off of, but they are trying to move to these broader questions. At the same time, we're funneling down into the grant level work for eval now. So just an interesting contrast between 2 institutions.
You're not starting with a barcode on each grantee. You know? I mean, origins for cultures are important. You know? Yeah. When you think about somebody who's coming from an inventory control system. Mm-hmm. You know, so.
Yep, I think that's right. And I mean, if I have more intangible contrasts, the huge privilege I have in this space is that with our leadership that comes from a more of an accounting finance background, they're comfortable with numbers, they value evaluation, they want that as part of the practice. So I never have to jump up and down saying, hey, I'm here, hey, I'm important, hey, include me. It's kind of expected, and leadership signals that by the meetings they attend or what they say, and where we're positioned. Like for me reporting to Paul, it signals where eval is in the place. Some of my other colleagues, the eval is a separate department. It may report into program or not. They're not as embedded, and so I am empathetic because I feel their frustration because they feel like they have so much to bring, but because of how they've been segmented away. As a separate function that's not integrated or tied into some of the things we've been talking about, they have much more of a difficult road to show value to the institution, and I think the foundation signals where they think eval should be by how they've put that in place.
I didn't think that, for example, Christy and Paul attending quarterly evaluation updates, I didn't think of that as something that might be unique.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Sit in the room.
Yeah, and that says something to program staff when you have your 2 executive leaders that attend those meetings on that end. And
what are those? I don't think I've heard of those.
We run quarterly eval program meetings. These are 2-hour meetings once every quarter. And at these meetings, I usually highlight a program evaluation project that's ongoing and might not be one that's completed.
Right.
Remember we kind of talked about?
You told me about that.
And I think we talked about the positive peer pressure that kind of creates by having people share and that cross-learning.
Right, and the cross-learning. Because I think I even put that in there. Now that I hear you describe it.
Yeah, exactly. And then the side note is just last week in my conversation with Paul, he said that Naomi and Heather both want to have invites to go to this meeting because they want to get up to speed more with eval. How many people have your leadership knocking on the door and saying, "Can I come to your meeting?"
Right, exactly. That's great.
What?
Especially general counsel.
Yeah, general counsel and our CFO wants to go to our eval meeting. Yeah. Well, if you want to come, absolutely. Yeah. But that I think signals the tilling of the soil we've been trying to see. So even though we don't have the fruit of here are the 10 eval reports on our area, there's other indicators of, I think, how we've been able to build it into our culture and practice that are important. Just like, I think we did talk about this model, right, on this end. Does this look familiar?
Yeah.
To you?
Yeah, in that this is a cycle, right? And
yeah, I think the main takeaway here of why I think this has resonated, at least for our department and for what we go to, is that when you get the evaluation report in, people usually think that that's the end of the process.
Right.
Like, oh, I got my evaluation report, check the box, I've done it.
Right.
And here, in order to get this learning aspect that you talk about,
Right.
that we have to actually, the cycle actually starts with the deliverable coming in. You actually have to pull your internal and external stakeholders together
Right.
to discuss what's in the report
Right.
in order to get to useful insights that will inform decisions
Right.
that are in there. And because Stephanie's heard me say it before too, people don't come to me and say, Ted, thank you so much for that report. That insight that you had on page 22 is actually what I need for a decision next
Right.
Tuesday. I mean, that never happens. These are
Right.
static documents
Right.
here. The
Right.
actionable insights that inform decisions actually come out of discussions, not out of the report themselves. So
Right.
this model has been, I've been really trying to emphasize that this key component is so crucial to
Right.
get this learning cycle and learning going.
Right. Right.
Because these kind of static documents, just because you get them on SharePoint or you even get them to people's desks, if you're not discussing them, you don't even know if people have been reading them or what the value is.
Right.
of that. So
Right. No,
a
that's
big
really
part
great.
of trying to make that happen here.
Well, this really helps. Can I can Stephanie make a copy of your notes there?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Could I just comment a little
Oh,
bit
yeah,
on,
yeah,
the,
of course.
on the
Yeah,
back end
yeah.
here too? So this is just back to more correction on the last page on page 6 under continuous learning.
Yeah.
That is where you captured language on the quarterly meetings.
Right.
So that's what we had talked about
Yeah,
earlier when you
yeah,
talked about
right.
those folks there. I just want to be clear that the topics there have an eval focus to them. The way it's kind of characterized, it feels like it's just a learning focus, like a forum for what people share and kind of go and practice. It really isn't that. It does have much more of an eval practice lens. What are we doing in the eval and sharing across?
Can you give me a couple of examples? I mean, just like terms or sort of. So when you say that the topics have an eval lens, what would be a topic, for example?
Yeah. So again, the two. Basically, there's two things that we run in each meeting. One is what I already talked about, which is we highlight an eval project that's already going on.
Right.
And that's the program voice there.
Right.
And then the topic area that we end up talking about is an eval-centric topic. So it could be identifying, how do you identify clear evaluation questions in your domain work? It would be, what are metrics or indicators that are appropriate for measuring progress or assessing impact?
Right.
Once you have those metrics in place, how do you determine data sources for that? So you
Right.
actually bring data in.
Right.
So those are
Those kinds of
topics
things,
that are being discussed in those meetings. So my preference is that rather than saying each quarter the eval team meets with executive leaders and program staff, it really is much more proactive on our side. We actually organize, schedule, set up the meetings, run the agenda. It's our one major meeting every quarter on that end. It's not just a meeting that we all come together. We're the drivers of that meeting.
Yep.
So that's there. And then in the last paragraph, just for clarification, when they added organizational learning formally to my title in 2017, that's a more recent iteration.
Right.
And so the first round of organizational learning work actually came out of strategy development and Celia's shop,
Okay.
not myself. And
So Joe and Brooke.
yeah,
Okay.
so that's
And
actually
actually it's
Jill
Jill?
Wilford. Yeah, Jill Wilford and Brooke Manville were consultants that Celia sourced and brought in.
Okay.
And she ran the first iteration of the org learning work that happened. So maybe you can describe my career here as been the reset person.
Yes.
Reset evaluation and reset organizational learning. Because as you noted, I think that was a very large working group that they had pulled together, and I think it brought some value there. It probably just wasn't at the right time, and
Right.
probably had too many cooks in the kitchen at the stage of where we're at,
Yeah.
and that's why it didn't have that momentum, and possibly why